Yeah, sorry.
Oh, in Jefferson, New Hampshire.
What is
I mean, I
this?
have two adults that are,
All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. Today is Tuesday, May 6th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. We're going to begin tonight with public comment. Are there any public comments from the board?
I will just thank everybody who came out to the annual town meeting, and to everybody who came, but especially those who stayed the whole time, all 8 hours. It was great Sunday afternoon programming, and I'm glad we got through the warrant and had good discussions on many articles. Thank you. You're here.
I also would like to thank everyone who attended town meeting on Saturday for participating in the democratic process. I'd also like to thank Jen, Julie, and Kara for all the work that they put into preparing for town meeting, because they did a truly great job and it was a flawless execution, so they truly deserve commendation for that. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize one of our residents, Charles Sanderson. Mr. Sanderson is a 101-year-old World War II veteran who was recognized yesterday at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center with the Boston Post cane, becoming a member of the Century Club and also receiving a Quilt of Valor. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Sanderson and his family and friends on the remarkable achievement of 101 years of life, and thank him once again for his service to our country as a veteran of World War II. It was truly an honor to have the opportunity to congratulate him and to thank him for his service yesterday. And just as a reminder, pancake breakfasts are back at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center. They are the second Wednesday of each month, which means that there's going to be one next Wednesday, May 14th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Any public comments from the public? Mrs. Brzezowski.
Thanks. I got a school committee meeting I got to get to. So Laura Brzezowski, 21 Francis Ave. I am here not as a school committee member, but as a citizen and a mother of 3 children. They're not voters yet, but they are your constituents. So I'm here tonight to ask you to take one of 2 actions. One is immediate and one is a compromise. Option 1 is to vote immediately to put the FY26 override on the ballot tonight. If you can't act tonight, you can post a meeting for Friday. Urgency is crucial. The fiscal year ends June 30th, and staff layoffs are imminent. Option 2, if you're not ready to act immediately, commit to working through the summer and bring an FY27 override to November special town meeting. This gives stability for next year and 6 months for departments to prepare. For option 1, planning for the school year next year has already started. It's not as simple as adding back high school teachers once the school year starts. Students will already be in classes and can't be disrupted. The high school schedule is being worked on now. Almost 10% of the staff is being laid off June 30th. We will have to pay out unemployment, which is coming out of the school budget. Many of our staff will find employment elsewhere, and we will lose them forever. We need action now. Class placements in younger grades are based on staffing levels. We can't change class placements after the school year starts. The school year begins in August, less than 4 months away. We need to maximize the impact of potential fiscal year 26 override money. The earlier the override, the more useful and impactful the money will be. But for option 2, if you're not prepared to act immediately, this is an excellent compromise. I know it seems difficult, but you guys can do it. Work through the summer, add extra meetings. I am on my way now to the school committee meeting. It is the second of 3 meetings I have this week because we have a job to get done. The Budget Task Force has already done much of the work of gathering the necessary data. You have on your board someone who is fantastically skilled at analyzing data and drawing useful conclusions. If the timing seems difficult, I'll remind you that you heard the Budget Task Force recommendations in March of this year, which would have left you very little time to act for this year. An FY27 override in November would provide stability going into the budget season. All the department heads would know what they're facing when developing their budgets for FY27. And it would save considerable time for them if they don't have to create multiple budget scenarios. For the schools, it would be good for our employees who will otherwise face a third consecutive year of uncertainty and stress. I cannot emphasize enough how difficult this is for our staff every year. We have lost quality teachers and staff. Staff have been deciding mid-year to leave to go to districts who have better stability. This is actively harming morale. It's making it difficult for us to attract and retain quality staff. We're losing great teachers. These positions are real people, people who are being harmed by continued inaction. My kids, all the kids in this town, deserve a quality education. This situation is urgent and requires immediate action. Hold additional meetings, make the hard decisions. Please do your job. Choose an option. Vote this week to immediately have a special election for the FY26 override, or commit to a comprehensive effort towards an override in November for FY27. Thank you.
Thank you.
gonna go now.
Any other public comments? Mrs. Lincoln.
Microphone for midgets. We're Pete and Debbie Lincoln, 46 Hemlock Drive. And unfortunately, we can't be here next week because we're going to have another post-op patient. So this is for next week. We just want to say thank you to the two outgoing board members who have been here through thick and thin, who have given us so much service, so much knowledge, so much dedication through some really, really tough times. We cannot say thank you enough to Michael Ray and Tom for their knowledge, dedication. I can't even imagine what this town would be like without both of you, and we have a little thank you. But because we have read our rules, what's inside cannot be used until after May 17th. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lincoln.
Tom, we salute you. Thank you. Michael, we love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Oh,
both very
and it's not goodbye, right? Because
No, it's not.
because you're going to stick around and help out, and we hope that we haven't, the town has lost you as select board members, but not as contributors, I hope, and I hope we have not lost you as friends.
Of course not.
Thank you.
Thank you both
As
very
they
much.
say in the movie Nomadland, we'll catch you down the road a piece.
All right, Mr. Beardmore.
Good evening, Peter Beardmore, 282 Pleasant Street, speaking tonight on behalf of myself. Everything that Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln said goes for me too, but I did not bring a gift. I'm here, I came in during Laura's comments, and I suspect that I echo much of what she had to say. I need to get out of the business of predicting what our voters are going to do, because until the vote was taken at town meeting, I frankly did not expect that citizens petition to go the way that it did. And obviously our discussions between the school committee and the select board a couple of months ago, you know, I definitely would not have predicted the outcome that we saw this past week. That being said, I think that a special election is an inevitability at this point. It's going to be demanded by the people who voted for it, and you heard a little bit about it tonight, and if it is not acted upon, I think that position will be amplified considerably in the coming weeks. The longer this takes, the longer it takes to get to clarity in terms of what the actual budget is for the next school year, the more negative impact that it's going to have. We've already informed people that are going to be affected that they're affected. They're looking for jobs. And I suspect that some amount of them, maybe most of them, will find jobs, and in the event that that funding comes around, they will need to be replaced. And that is additional disruption on the school department and the administration and whatnot. Either way, and I have my own opinion with respect to whether this should pass or not, but I think we can all agree that we want to minimize the disruption that our administrators and educators as a whole face going into what is going to be a challenging year no matter what. And so I think that one way that we can do that is to move forward very quickly and get this issue resolved through a special election at our earliest availability. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beardmore. Any other public comments from the public? Any on Zoom? All right, not seeing any there either. We'll move on to announcements. I actually have several tonight. Are you smarter than our sixth graders? The 11th annual, is that correct, Mr. Alonso?
11th, yes.
Annual Are You Smarter Than Our Sixth Graders is happening this Friday at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6:30. The live game show and fundraiser, hosted by the club, the Lunenburg Teen Center, again, will be this Friday at 7 p.m. at the Middle High School Auditorium. It's one of the most fun events out of the year, in my opinion. I encourage everyone to attend. There will be a 50-50 raffle, and the select board will be there competing this year. The All Vendor Fair is this Saturday, organized by the Lunenburg Business Association and the Parks Department. There will be vendor tables with local artisans, farmers, craftspeople, as well as face painting, a bouncy house, a betting zoo, a dunk tank, and more. It will be from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at TC Passios. Yard Waste Days, the landfill at 27 Youngs Road, is only going to be open for 3 more Saturdays. So that's going to be this Saturday, the 10th, the following Saturday, the 17th. It'll be closed Memorial Day weekend, and then reopened the following Saturday on May 31st. Classic Cruise Night is on May 21st from 4 to 8 p.m. on Memorial Drive down to TC Passios. It'll be a free event with music, food, games, and prizes. It's hosted by the Lunenburg Community Food Pantry, the Lions Club, the PTO, and the Teen Center. And the rain date for that is May 28th. From the town clerk's office, 2025 census forms and dog licenses are still straggling, so if you haven't sent in your census form or picked up your dog license, please do so as soon as possible. If you have any questions, reach out to the town clerk's office. Vote by mail and absentee ballots for the May 17th annual town election are now available. You can go to the town clerk's office or email the town clerk's office at townclerk@lunenburgma.gov to request a ballot to be mailed. And as a reminder, the annual town election is Saturday, May 17th at TC Passios.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The town fair, which the weather looks very questionable, is there a rain date for that, or is there not?
There was, I believe it's the following Sunday. Like, right?
I believe you're correct. Mr.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the following Sunday, the next day.
Well, not the following Sunday, like the next day.
The next day, yes. Let me just pull it up.
Being
Because
Mother's
that'd be Mother's Day,
It is Mother's Day,
It is
actually.
Mother's Day.
and that's
Yes.
supposed to be a beautiful day.
Well,
When? Did they? Oh, okay, good.
oh, okay.
That's not what I
Well, it
was,
sounds like the forecast for Saturday actually is pretty good.
that's
so-
good. And that wasn't,
Hopefully
when I
we
left the
don't-
office, that wasn't what it was, so that's
It'll
good.
change 50 times between
All right.
now and then, so.
Well, we'll see. Who knows? But yeah, the rain date is the following Sunday, Mother's Day. Okay. Communications from other boards. I don't see any here. And now we'll move on to our 7:10 meeting, a use agreement for the temporary use of 4 classrooms at TC Passios by the Shapiro Educational and Behavioral Consultants. And we do have Mr. Shapiro here tonight, so I will invite him up to the podium to give him the opportunity to introduce himself and talk about the services he provides and the program that he'll be running this summer.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting that.
Oh.
Rob Shapiro, 144 Northfield Road, and also 39 Main Street. So for those of you who don't know, we run an agency that provides support for children and young adults with autism spectrum disorders. We support about 200 families throughout north central Massachusetts, a small proportion of which come to our Lunenburg location for support either during the school day, typically for little ones, and then after school and on weekends for social skills groups for children that are typically of school age. When summer hits, many of the families that we support, the children don't have the structure and support that they have in their current public school setting, and they're looking for that support and for something to be able to do. So typically over the summer, we run summer programming where those children can come during what would normally be their school day and get support that extends beyond what's typically a 5 or 6 week partial day summer program that most school districts offer for those students. Last year, we were able to successfully provide support for all of the families that wanted it, which amounted to about 60 families. This summer, we have closer to 90 families that are looking for this kind of support. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't surprised. We are out of space already in that building over there to support that number of families, and so we're hoping to be able to access a few of the classrooms over at TCP to be able to provide that support to these families.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro.
My
Any
pleasure.
questions from the board?
I have no questions, except that have the details been hammered out by the town manager?
Yes, so, Mr. Chairman, through you, I worked with town council for them to draft a license agreement. The license is from June 1st through August 31st for the use of 4 classrooms at the rate of $500 per classroom per month. I have asked Mr. Shapiro and our facilities director, Chris Ruth, to just identify those 4 classrooms so that we can nail that down in the license agreement. And then, so what I am asking of the select board tonight is to authorize the town manager to execute the license agreement once I get that information about the 4 classrooms on behalf of the board with Mr. Shapiro.
So I would say that the work that Mr. Shapiro is doing is excellent, and obviously that's really reflected by the number of families and the increasing number of families that he has just indicated he's supporting. So I fully support the request and have no problem authorizing the town manager through town council to set up a licensing agreement to do such for the summer program.
I support the agreement as well. I just have a question. What's a temperature control in those classrooms like in the summertime? I know the food pantry has had issues keeping it cool in there in the summer. And if we don't know, like some, I don't know, portable air conditioning, something, summertime, it's going to be hot.
We would be very comfortable and would like to be able to put portable air conditioners in those classrooms, assuming that the circuitry will be able to accommodate it in the building.
You might
We
need
understand that it might not be able to, that it's possible those circuits would blow, but if the rooms will accommodate it, we'll do it. And if not, we've run summer camp before in locations that didn't have AC, and it's not ideal, but we make it work.
It's just something to check with facilities with Chris Ruth about.
We can work with Mr. Ruth on that and
Yeah.
see what we can do to be as accommodating as possible.
Wonderful, thank you.
I don't have any additional questions.
I appreciate the work that you do. You know, it's so important. You know, many parents, you know this, but many parents, you know, struggle when they have children with special behavioral needs. You know, and so it's so wonderful that I think that you provide this service. I think it's wonderful that it's here in Lunenburg. You know, and I'd be remiss to not highlight that, you know, organizations such as yours need community space. It is important for the community to have the space available in order to support the families that need it. You know, I think it's wonderful that we have the building there available, but it would be even better if we had more space available that was conditioned, that was ADA compliant, because these kinds of needs come up. and they're sometimes temporary. So I just want to highlight that I think the work you've done down the street at 4 Andrew Hall, I think has been phenomenal. So just want to thank you for the work you're doing for the community. I know the parents support it. One of my nieces has autism, and it's been challenging for the family. It's been challenging for my brother and his now ex-wife, because you see it every day. But I think for many people who aren't exposed to some of the behavioral challenges that kids have, parents need a lot of support, and so do the kids. And there's a huge impact when you have that early intervention. When you're working with kids young, just the outcomes go through the roof. And you already know this. I'm just saying it really for the public at large, for how vital these kinds of services are. And I just want to appreciate it that you're doing this here in town. Thank you.
Thank you, and I wanted to take a moment just in response to that to say, first of all, it's my pleasure. It's joyful work. We love doing it. Everybody that's over there loves the work that they're doing, and I also wanted to acknowledge the community at large that has been incredibly accepting and encouraging of us. And you'd like to think that that would be the case. But I think that we have to be realists and recognize that it's not always the case, that people are open and accepting of people with disabilities, people who are different than they are. And so it's been wonderful to see the way the community has embraced us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work you do, Mr. Shapiro. It's so important. And I'm glad that we can offer a space, even though if it's, not the best and most comfortable space in town to offer you. I'm glad that we're able to support the work that you do in some way. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to execute the use agreement on behalf of the select board?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. So again, thank you, and thanks for coming in tonight.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we have a public hearing for an alteration to licensed premises for the on-premises alcohol license for Jung Jun Lo, Inc., doing business as Asian Imperial, located at 5 Electric Avenue. It is a public hearing, so I'll ask the clerk to read the public hearing notice and invite the applicant up.
Do you need it? Yeah. The Lunenburg Licensing Authority will hold a public hearing on May 6, 2025 at 7:20 in Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, on the application submitted by Jin Jun Lu, Inc., DBA Asian Imperial for an alteration to licensed premises for the Section 12 on-premises alcohol license located at 5 Electric Avenue, Lunenburg, Mass. The alteration is the addition of an exterior 8 by 15 stone patio and wall to provide outdoor table service.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Hi, yes.
Hi.
I'm happy to be here. So Jennifer, do you have the plan stamped by the architect I sent you?
We have everything.
Okay.
in
So
the
it's
packet.
stamped.
And
it's
everything's
approved
looking
by
good to you, Jen?
Everything is in order.
All right.
Okay.
Any questions
Yeah.
from the board?
About,
The application.
oh,
I think last time you were concerned about the building inspector, some coded, right? Like a handicap accessibility, and I remember last time you had a couple questions.
I think they addressed those.
Okay. I believe those were addressed.
Yeah, address, yeah.
Okay. So there's nothing outstanding, right?
Nope.
Okay.
just looking
Yeah, I'm just double
at the
checking.
documentation here.
And did this have to go to Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Did you
when it
already?
says- Yes,
Okay.
we're waiting for the site visit. Yeah, I
Okay.
think Sophia's out, so we're waiting for someone to come down, yeah.
Later in the agenda this evening, we'll be getting to somebody to
Oh, yeah.
cover
Hopefully
the
so,
Conservation
yeah.
Office.
And this has got to go, eventually, the whole plan goes to planning anyway, right? Isn't that what we discussed?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, again, for the license, I want to rehash
Okay,
everything
yeah,
I said.
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
past.
Just for the license part, yeah.
Yep.
The building part will be the building. All right, thank you.
I have no concerns as long as the emails from the building commissioner and the fire and police chief are followed. I'm fine with it.
Right,
Same.
right.
Michael, right?
The restaurant has been a good business in town.
Oh, thank you.
Never any complaints, very popular, so.
Thank you.
I have one question for Kim. Hey, Kim, I just want to make sure, as I look at the, yeah, I see it here, that you did not remove the takeout parking spaces. I fought for when I was on the planning board.
Only make it. Yeah, no change. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is a public hearing, so I do see someone with their hand raised on Zoom. So, Mr. Graham, if you'd like to speak to this, you may.
Hi there. Alan Graham, 13 Electric Ave. I just wanted to put our support into it. Kim has always been a great neighbor. Anything that's ever been a problem, she's taken care of immediately. And we're fully in support of this. The only thing is that we're sad that this is going to be the other side because we are habitual people watchers, so we're not going to get to see what happens on the patio. But yeah, we're in fully support of this.
All right, great. Thank you for letting us know, Mr. Graham. All right, is there any other members of the public who would like to speak in the public hearing? All right, I'm not seeing any. So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the alteration to licensed premises for the alcohol license for Zhang Junlo Inc. doing business as Asian Imperial as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously.
Good luck.
Yeah. Thanks again for coming
Thank
in,
you.
Kim, and
Looking
can't
forward
wait
to it.
until it's built. Yeah. Good night. All right, moving on to appointments, ratifications, and resignations. We have 3 tonight. So first is the ratification of the town manager's appointment of Owen Snyder as a lifeguard.
So Mr. Snyder is new to the town of Lunenburg as a lifeguard. This will be his first year in the position, but he does have the certifications and is ready to go.
Great. Any questions? All right, is there a motion to ratify the town manager's appointment of Owen Snyder as lifeguard?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. What's next? Ratification of the town manager's appointment of Susan Sullivan as assistant to the sewer business manager.
So Ms. Sullivan has extensive experience in accounting and bookkeeping and accounts payable and receivable. She is new to municipal, but I think that we have seen success with folks new to municipal in this role in the past, and I'm looking forward to her joining us.
Great. Any questions? Is there a motion to ratify the town manager's appointment of Susan Sullivan as assistant to the sewer business manager?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. And last but not least, the ratification of the town manager's appointment of Herlin Jamie as acting conservation agent.
Yes, so Ms. Jamie is Fitchburg, the town of Fitchburg's conservation agent. We have an illness in the office that might take a little bit of time before we can get Sophie back with us. So Ms. Jamie has agreed to come on and help us out up to 10 hours a week just to make sure that applications are still being processed and that we are getting the work done in Sophie's absence. And we wish her a speedy recovery, but I thank Herlin for being willing to step up and help us out.
Yes, thank you. Any questions on this one? All right, is there a motion to ratify the town manager's appointment of Herlin Jamie as acting conservation agent?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, up next, town manager report. You don't have,
I do not have a report this evening.
all right.
Understandable.
Yeah.
What
did you do all weekend?
All the time you had on Sunday? Crazy.
All right, we'll move on to new business, perfect segue, post-town meeting discussion. So I have a couple items that I want to bring up, so we can go through those. The first is logistics. Like I said in my public comment, I think it was perfect. I think the setup and the execution of it really was flawless. Congratulations, Jen. I think you did a great job. You're deserving of all the commendation on that. Any discussion on any of the logistics of town meeting?
No, I would echo what you said. I think under any circumstances, that I think the town manager and the staff did an incredible job. There really was not one hitch in the whole thing. Everything was fully well explained. It was a very thorough motion sheet. Everybody was well prepared. The fact that it was done with the town manager coming on in February is pretty Herculean, and I know it doesn't happen overnight. I'm sure there were plenty and plenty and plenty of hours that were put into that. But all of that has led me to believe very clearly that we made a very good and solid decision in the town manager position, so thank you.
Thank you.
Here, here.
I agree.
I also want to thank the town manager as well for all the work you've done, and I want to, you and I have talked one-to-one, so, this is me just saying it publicly. I also want to acknowledge, the work from PAC. They really, I think, did a phenomenal job, and as well as the town clerk, the amount of work and hours, the whole team is just, getting into town hall with the improvements over the last several years. The voting process is much quicker, the check-in process is quicker, and as other colleagues have said, the entire just format of the meeting, certainly a credit to Tim Murphy, but obviously huge credit to you. And I know you and I were talking a lot throughout this, so I know how late you were up. So I just want to acknowledge that as well. Thank you.
And if I can just comment too, I mean, this is not my first town meeting. I've had several in several communities, and I will say that this was my easiest to set up, and that's because the staff knows what they're doing. And that's from the PAC staff to the IT contractor, to the IT staff at the schools, to the town clerk, to the vendor that came in for the voting machines. I mean, everything was as smooth as one could possibly want. And then in preparing all the materials, everybody, department heads were revising things, double-checking things, looking at all the materials. It was really a great process. And I think I commented to you that I think that Lunenburg, although has a long town meeting, has a very nice town meeting. I think it was a great opportunity to really see a different cross-section of the community that I don't see in these meetings. And I think that I was really impressed by the residents' participation and their engagement. And I thank the residents for coming out and hanging out through the process all day, because it's how we do our business for the remainder of the year, and we can't do it without that partnership. And so just thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything on logistics that we need to discuss? No?
Anna Lockwood said she wants healthier snack options.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind for November.
I just want to echo, healthier snack options as an addition, not in substitute for.
Correct.
What we
Don't
got.
take away the cookie.
Why?
Right.
It'd be there.
No, the candy. She didn't like the
For the next people, you want to you need the burst of energy and the sugar
Yeah.
that on it.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jen. Next thing is the Brooks House. So now that we have the report from the Municipal Building Design Committee, the board can discuss it, so that'll be coming up at a future meeting. Any discussion on the Brooks House after that presentation? Okay. Up next is the Prop 2.5 override. So if you were not at town meeting, for members of the public, or you haven't watched the recording or heard yet, the citizens petition for the Prop 2.5 override passed at town meeting. 76 to 74, I believe.
96.
96 to 94, thank you. So I know it was 2 votes, so it was fairly close, but Prop 2.5 overrides only need a simple majority at both the town meeting and at the ballot to pass. So now that it's passed, we did decide not to put the override on the annual town election warrant, so it's not going to be on the ballot. So it's our decision now whether or not we want to call a special election. So what do you guys think? Do you think we should be holding a special election for the override?
I can go first, I guess. I mean, my opinion hasn't changed.
Okay.
It was no. I'm still a no. I can give reasons why if we want to get into a discussion, but yeah.
I would say the same. I mean, it wasn't even split boards. It was unanimous for this board, the finance committee, and the school committee not to do this. That not being on the ballot potentially influenced people who may have voted against it at town meeting not to go, and it did not overwhelmingly pass. It passed by 2 votes of 190 people out of a voting population of 7,500. So I don't see anything that has influenced my decision to change it. I'm only here for another today and next week, but I don't see any reason why I would change my vote on it, no.
My opinion has also not changed for the reasons as stated. 2 votes, to me, is not an overwhelming majority. I do understand it's a simple majority for the citizens petition for the override. But I didn't bring my prepared statements. I'm sure this conversations can go on and on, but I've publicly stated my reasons why many, many times. That doesn't mean I don't support the schools. Again, I have 2 children still in the school system. But as Member Alonso just said, every single board and committee in town voted unanimously not to do this at this time. I think we absolutely actively need to pursue this for the future because it needs to happen, and I do feel terrible that there are people that are being impacted by this, but I think it's going to put the town in a very difficult position if we do it now, and I think there will be long-lasting implications that have not been fully vetted because this was not properly vetted at this time. So for that reason, I will still be voting no, and I would vote no to put on a special election.
Okay. I do support calling a special election. However, I want to acknowledge the comments from my colleagues because, it's correct. Our role on the select board is everything basically but schools. And I know that when I was on the planning board as a member, I felt a little unsupported by the select board when we had an issue. And, I think that part of being here, the role, as I ultimately said when I voted not to put this on before the voters, our role here is to support the other boards. And it's really hard for the select board to come in after the fact, after a school committee who has responsibility over the budget, it's really hard for the select board to come in after the fact and say, well, we know better, and so we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. I think that that's a little problematic. Additionally, at town meeting, if one person had voted differently, I know it passed by 2, but if one person had voted differently, it wouldn't have passed. I agree with Mr. Alonso's comments that, the fact that it wasn't before on the ballot, I think maybe did disincentivize some people to show up. But ultimately where I land is, where I land on this is I think I feel, and it's probably a little more emotional than I normally am, so let me say, we have to address the fact that a department, regardless, a department that is more than half the budget must continue to grow at 12% a year or continue to make some substantial cuts. Like, it is a formula that is problematic. That must be addressed. I didn't hear any comments on the floor of town meeting that even spoke to how much this was going to cost the average taxpayer, that even spoke to the structural things that are underlying this, that spoke to what is going to be done to fix this. I mean, I know that we had 2 members of the school committee in front of us today. I mean, but ultimately, I think that they've been aware of these kind of challenges now for almost 2 years. And I just don't understand why the select board is in the position consistently to try to resolve something that we, in effect, don't really have much say over. Nonetheless, I also have said several times that I respect that this board has the decision to put things on the warrant or not, but I think I'm still kind of in the position I was in before, but I'm just a little more inclined today than not to put this before the voters. I do think many people will come out and adding $600 to everyone's tax bill from the override last year and potentially from one this year. I feel badly again for the senior community and the people who just can't afford it. But I do think it may be a question that should be before the voters.
I agree. I also would be in support of calling a special election. I think at the time I didn't want to put it on the ballot because it didn't make sense to put it on the ballot, having conversations with the school committee. But now town meeting, which is the legislature of the town, has spoken and they voted in favor of it. And I don't think it's really our role as the executive to gatekeep public decisions. So I think we should respect the will of voters at town meeting and just give them the option to vote on it. But it sounds like I'm solidly in the minority on this one here, and it doesn't sound like anyone's really willing to change their opinion. Renee?
So I can just add some additional commentary from what I've said in the past. I don't think it's fiscally responsible thing to do. And why I say that is simply just, taking a budget that wasn't fully vetted by the school committee, doing a subtraction, and that's the amount. Last year, override passed. It was a stopgap. If you saw, been paying attention to recent school committee meetings, there were a number of line item transfers to cover shortcomings and deficits in the budget, which is not unusual to, do line item transfers. Some of these are kind of big. And I think most of them revolve, oh, no pun intended, around the athletic revolving fund. Comments have been made that basically, there were certain line items, certain expenses that were brought forward to the town, needed an increase. That's why override was brought forward. And now, I'll quote a member of the school committee who said, through bad budgeting, they are now zeroing out some of those lines. So, that's doing it again this year, a stopgap. We need a 3-year plan, something. We need a plan, not just the delta, and this is what we need to get through next year. And I think giving $500,000 of free cash is kind of, what we can do to minimize. I know it's going to hurt. I know it sucks. It's not easy, but I think, the fiscally responsible thing to do for the entire town is to not put it on the ballot this year. And doing the right thing is not always easy. $500,000 of free cash hopefully will help mitigate that pain. I feel bad for people losing their jobs. Been there. It's not fun. So I am committed to do whatever I am asked to do to try to come up with, work with whoever to come up with a plan. The firefighters have been waiting for a fourth shift for 2 years at least. We have other, the whole consolidation of efficiencies through consolidating services and whatnot between school, town, whatever. We talked about it, but weren't able to dive deep into it at the budget task force. Jen is here now. We've got our town manager who is, the way you got up to speed on the budget, you can hit the ground running now with next year's. The superintendent, boy, I hope they can get up to speed that quick, because that's going to be a challenge. I can't get there. I can't. I just feel like it's repeating. It's not the best way forward. It's not ideal. And I think it's been said a number of times, it's the least bad option. But I think it's the right thing to do, and I think it's our job to have the whole town, the best interests of the whole town in mind, and that's kind of, I've spent many sleepless hours tossing this around, trying, to see it from every angle, and I keep landing at the same spot.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on that tonight?
I would encourage, I know, first, I think the comments from my colleagues are well thought out, and I agree with 99% of it. So, I'm right there with them. I do think nonetheless that it may be a wise idea to re-engage this after the election. I don't know if the election is going to have any impact on this board at all, but I do think, it may be a wise course of action just to see if there's a change in thought process in 2 weeks. But, I think that what everyone on the board is saying is correct, which is, the select board as a board, and I just want to say this again, we have a school committee that did not ask for an override, that very specifically met with us, understood it all, and chose not to pursue it at all. A finance committee that didn't support it, not even a little bit. And it is a bad financial, I want to just double down on what Selectman Imke said. It is a bad financial plan to have a department that needs to grow at 12% a year, and that more needs to be done to figure out the most effective, efficient way to educate children within the confines of the budget. And unfortunately, income goes up generally by 2.5% plus a little bit extra. We'll say about 2.7, 2.8%. There's not enough wiggle room for half of the budget, 54% of the budget, to need to grow by 4 times that amount. There's just no room, 5 times that amount. There's just no room. So something must be done differently, and it's not from this board, but maybe part of why this should be before the voters is so the voters can speak with a clear voice. And I want to be clear, I would not vote at the ballot in favor of an override, but that is a different question than whether or not it should be in front of them.
All right. Well, I'm not looking on any action on this tonight anyway. I don't want to make votes on Prop 2.5 overrides, whether we're voting for it or against it during this agenda item, so. All right.
Can I offer some good news, maybe?
Sure.
A little silver lining. I don't know if folks got the MMA email that I got today about the what the Ways and Means budget, that the numbers, the Chapter 70 numbers, I mean, these still are not final numbers, but things are moving like in a positive direction.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe all of this, if the numbers stay as they are, or close to what they are, maybe all of the advocacy and speaking out that everyone's been doing, maybe it's actually helping, maybe it's doing something.
Well, it has helped, for sure. One of the things that I heard from Representative Scarsdale is that the per pupil funding level was increased. We asked for it to be increased to $150 per pupil. It was increased by $150 per pupil. There are some other funding
That's not what I read.
That's exactly what I was told.
That's not what was in the article.
No?
It increased to
It just came
150.
today, right? Because I don't think.
Yeah, but on DLS now has a preliminary FY26 cherry sheet
Yeah.
as well. And smart growth, we're getting smart growth back, which remember last year?
Yes, well, that was like 200 and some odd thousand. Yeah.
Would you mind sharing those numbers publicly, Renee, those preliminary numbers?
On the DL, from the DL.
Just so that way it's out.
I mean, this is on the receipt, I mean, these are
can look it up.
totals?
150. I'll show you the article.
The article, yeah, I still have it open.
So it's,
Chapter 70, the bill would leverage fair share surtax revenue in order to increase minimum new aid from $30 per student to $150, which would benefit 77% of school districts, 245 out of 318 that were set to receive an increase of less than 150. And what was our 75 preliminary?
75.
Yeah. We still didn't get busing, only regional, that's the.
Well, that was another thing that I was told. I misspoke on the other thing, but I did hear that they are looking at both regional and comprehensive transportation funding as well.
Regional got increased.
Yeah, but we should receive something as well. Yeah.
The cherry sheet still has 0.
Yep.
Well, I mean, the state incentivizes communities to regionalize. And
I know.
you save a lot of money. And, we were in conversations about this many, many years ago, and Lunenburg decided to go it alone. And so now we are seeing, the cost of it,
Well, in the regional transportation, they encourage people to regionalize, and then they penalize them by never funding the regional transportation. So you did not get helped by doing it, even though they incentivized you to do it, which was always a kind of paradox that the state loves to do. So if they start putting money into regional first, I'm glad, even though it doesn't affect us, because they really went back on a promise of people who regionalized to address this.
Well, they.
Obviously, if you regionalize, the busing costs and the distances are way greater than if you have a local system.
And the special ed circuit breaker, I don't understand that well enough to know the numbers, but that was also impacted.
All right. Any other discussion on town meeting items?
Question, I think for the town manager. Can you just review the process, because the debt exclusion articles are on the ballot?
Correct. So,
And they still mean something on the ballot, is that, I mean, just to
that's correct.
educate the public, what
So-
happens?
I think that, let me do municipal building first, because that one's a little bit easier with the way that that one went on the ballot. So if the municipal building project were to pass at the ballot, the appropriation could occur at town meeting within a reasonable amount of time. That's the standard, is reasonable. I would argue that special town meeting is likely a reasonable amount of time. So we could, if the municipal building design passes, we could bring back that up at the special. I'm not so sure because of the way that we had drafted the ballot question for the Marshall Park project, because we were anticipating the possibility of two different outcomes. If you recall, that we wanted to draft that ballot question in a way that regardless of which motion may be approved at town meeting, either would pass, so it references back to the vote. So I don't know that the same is true for that one
Okay,
because of that. But if it is, then it would also
okay.
be a reasonable amount of time.
And a follow-up, now the grant writing services, assuming won't be used.
So I have on my calendar to have a discussion with the chair of Parks Commission next week. I don't know if they're still going to pursue the park grant or not. Separate from the park grant, though, I know that the school has expressed some interest in using some of those funds to help get a different project to the finish line. So
Okay.
trying to use them if we can before the end of the fiscal.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to comment, 'cause I probably should have said it earlier, that the municipal building design project, it came down to, based on the numbers, I think it was 6 votes, essentially. If 6 votes had been different, it would have passed. I think it had 62 to 63%, not quite 63, a little less. But that's substantial. 62, 63% support, I mean, if it was the Senate, confirmed. But here we need overwhelming support. So, I definitely think there's a path ahead and it's worth to pursue.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that both of these projects had really strong foundations that were laid and at town meeting, and I think that the messaging, different folks heard about the projects and maybe weren't ready to get to yes on Saturday, but I'm hopeful that we can work jointly to get to a yes going forward.
Well, the town, I will say this, I mean, the parks, this is the first time a vote of this nature came up, and they put a lot of work into their planning as well, but from the municipal standpoint now, this is now going on 13 years or something of that nature, and to the townspeople is something, I mean, this is what happens over the course of 18 years. You just wind up saying the same thing. I mean, the town has to make a decision. You can't, on the one hand, complain that the buildings nobody's addressing the deficiencies in the buildings, and then decide that we're not going to build anything new either, but then when you go to put an $800,000 roof on TC Passios, we're like, why are we doing that if we're thinking about tearing it down? And it's like, well, we need people to come together and decide. Somebody said it, and I couldn't agree more with them at town meeting, which is, the plan isn't perfect, but if you wait around for perfect, you never build anything.
We've already been waiting for perfect, and here we are,
Right.
20 years later.
Right, and because I'm a big lover of movies, I just remember the line from Braveheart when he goes to meet with the nobles and they say, it's a trap, why are you doing that? He says, what's going to happen if we don't go? Nothing. And that's what's going to happen again. Now we're going to be, if it passes at the ballot, then we're in the same position with the citizen petition override. Then you're going to be forced to hold another one or hold it in the minute, and it just gets really messy. But if that doesn't happen, then we're looking at a couple of years again, because again, then the prices go up, so you can't just bring the thing forward, so you got to have it recosted. That costs somebody to hire to do that, and we just get caught in this never-ending cycle.
Luckily, the cost estimate that we had did account for potentially November town meeting. So we did it. That was why we had such a substantial contingency in there, and that escalator was if it needed to be another vote in November, It was kind of built into the price.
Well, what I will say, just so people don't not go, because we said maybe people didn't go on the citizen petition override, to everybody listening, the ballot is active. Those are active questions. We didn't take the ballot and throw it in the garbage and exit out on everybody. You're still going to vote on it, so vote on it. Because if a vote is overwhelming in one direction or another, that gives direction if we get a few thousand people voting, as opposed to 190. So again, don't not go and let a few people decide this, and then we have to try to read the tea leaves, or somebody else on this board has to read the tea leaves about what does that mean? If only on a typical town election, 500 people vote, how are you supposed to ascertain what you're supposed to do if it's very close?
Any other town meeting discussion? All right. We'll move on. Vote to declare various IT items as surplus property. So this is a result of the ongoing clean out of TC Passios, right?
Well, we're cleaning out a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So I expect a lot of surplus votes coming to
Right.
the select board.
But
So-
all of this was stuff that
But
was
this
found
one,
in
this
TC
is all
Passios.
old IT stuff that is no longer in use. So that is being stored at TC Passios. There's approximately 65 to 70 monitors, 26 desktop towers, 5 to 7 printers, 8 switches, and 5 10-by-10 boxes of various keyboards and cords. Asking the board to declare these items surplus this evening so that we may have an e-waste company come and take them away.
This is like the 12 days of Christmas. Somebody was waiting how long you were going to go here.
Any questions for the town manager?
Makes sense.
No. Is there a motion to declare all these IT items as surplus property?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Up next, we have a vote to accept gift of holiday decorations from Dave McDonald.
So, Mr. Chairman, now we are actually talking about Christmas.
I know.
So, Mr. McDonald, I think folks know, has been decorating the town common for a number of years, and those decorations have historically been stored at the DPW, and now he is donating them to the town officially. So it's to accept that donation.
And so this is nothing new. It's all of the decorations that we have been using.
Yep.
We're just, okay.
We're just formally accepting them and thanking Mr. McDonald for his donation.
Understood. Any questions? Is there a vote to?
I think the email says he did bring
Yeah,
some
that's what I
additional.
thought. 'cause I thought
Oh,
there was
some
a
additional.
box
What?
of-
He
yeah,
brought
I think
some
there's
additional-
new, okay.
Right, there's new
Yeah,
things.
there's new things.
Right.
I don't
So
know
I
if
think
we
it's a
just vote on-
combination of existing and new stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they've been, as things have broken, he's replaced them
Sure.
over the years. So they're all
Yeah.
various ages, yes.
Right.
But as far as last year, when everything was put away, they were working.
Right. Okay.
That's the important part.
Is there a motion to accept the gift of holiday decorations from Dave McDonald?
So moved with our thanks.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Aye. Sorry, I was saying aye, not
That's
no.
okay.
My brain is delayed.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. On to old business. Up first, we have the discussion on sick leave bank policy. So the town manager and HR director have been looking at other sick leave bank policies. There's a bunch of them in here in the drive. There's also a spreadsheet comparing them. I know I'm going to need some time to look over it. I'm sure other members are going to as well, so I'm not really looking to discuss this too much or make any decisions tonight. But Jen, I know there are also ongoing conversations. You want to just give an update?
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we had a meeting with the benefits administrator to talk about some of the mechanics and what she sees and what she's seen over time. She's been here for a number of years, about 14 years. And just so the board is aware, in the 14 years that she's been here, she's aware of 4 people who have benefited from the unofficial sick leave donations. 2 of those were for periods of time longer than a year. So that's sometimes the time period that we're looking at is longer than a year. We had conversations around the efficiency of administering the bank, and the belief is that we should have something that in here that there's a minimum amount of requested time. So if you only needed one day or 1 week, that it's not worth necessarily the sick leave bank convening. So we had a discussion around 2 weeks or more of time. We did talk about, one of the things as we've thought about this since the discussion here before the board, that's very, I think, going to be one of the challenges for success, is that we have members of different bargaining units who have very different days. What's a day to a firefighter versus a day to a 6-hour-a-day employee? So next week, we're going to have a meeting with, hopefully next week, with all of the union reps. And I did put this out for feedback. I didn't get feedback other than from one person. So we're going to directly engage with union reps about how does this actually work. So it would be easier to administer a bank that had the same set of rules, but we had different banks for the different bargaining units. That's certainly easier. The concern is, though, that then there's not a lot of time in any of the individual banks. So let's see where that goes with the union. One of the things that was brought up, though, was that we shouldn't have, or that we talked about not allowing this to be intermittent at all. So it would be blocks of time, just because if it was intermittent, it would be too difficult to administer. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. The 300 days, in looking at the other communities, it doesn't seem that the number of days in the bank seems to be arbitrary based on their sizes as well. A little concerning that the 2 out of the 4 were both over a year when we're talking about 300 days, but alternatively, if we go higher than the 300 days, that was where we kick into the automatic if the bank dips down. I don't want people having to give all their time, just because we're trying to get to 400 days or 500 days. So I think we have some more work to do on this. I want this rollout to be right as opposed to quick.
Any questions?
I think this is great so far. I'm impressed with the amount of work you guys have already had time. I don't know how you've found the time when we were prepping for town meeting to put all this together. But my only ask, not really a question, is can the Excel sheets be put in the drive too?
Oh, sure.
Instead of just PDFs?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just like to sort and filter data.
Yep, I agree.
And I did put it, so the results that we got there were from the MMHR listserv. I put it out to my listserv. I didn't get any results. So I think, though, with the, I don't really want to go and find too many more. I think we have a good variety there. But it's really the mechanics of how this is going to operate that I
Yeah,
think
which is
gonna
some
be
of
a
the things I had
challenge.
brought up when we talked about it before. It's how. We want it to work, but how does it work? Yeah.
Right. Any other questions or comments on this tonight?
No, I mean, to me, the tricky part is 2 parts I brought up last time, which was, what happens if there is not enough by chance, and then somebody's like, well, like, the one time I needed it, I put in for 5 years, my sick time, and then the one time I needed it, there's not enough, so how does that work? And then, of course, the hourly, the day. What is a day, and can you do it by hours instead of days? And people take it out in that regard. I mean, that's another way of doing it, because everybody works hours. So you take out the days that you work. So if you only work 6 hours a day, then you take out 6 hours as opposed to something else. That's another way of doing it. But that, I think, is critical to it working equitably. Otherwise, I mean, I think the comparison chart is very helpful.
One thing that I did neglect to say is that there was a thought of, and I think it's a good idea, that upon separation, that employees may donate an additional up to 2 days or whatever it is. We don't want them to donate all their time because then we have a big liability there, but up to 2. A lot of employees are carrying sick time and to donate up to 2 on their way out the door.
Cool.
All right, anything else on this tonight? All right, move on to discussion on acceptance of gift policy. So there were a couple of things that we made notes of here that we can just do a second pass at. So let's look at the town manager's comments because she captured them all. So the first one is trust funds. We don't have to do anything on that. That's just a comment. Second one's about what? Do you guys have it open?
Tom's screen looks like my screen. looked
What's
like,
going on with
all
your
those
screen?
bubbles.
Yeah, there was just a whole, I just had, my whole screen turned into symbols, and before the document came up.
I saw a lot of gesticulation over, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, because I didn't know what I was looking at. I was waiting for one more bar to spin around.
Yeah, it looked like a bunch of emojis and weird.
Yeah.
All right, so the first thing of substance here is under gift acceptance authority. I remember we had a conversation about this. So
Where are you looking? What number?
this is on the first page. So if you go down to
Okay, there,
gift
I got it,
acceptance
okay.
authorities,
Yep.
this one right here, any board or officer, we discussed if we wanted to just put select board there.
I think it should just be the select board, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Well, don't we have to exclude, does the school have their own gift acceptance? I think we have to exclude the schools.
probably, because
Yeah.
we're definitely not
Yeah.
accepting their gifts.
Right.
Select board and school.
Unless it says in the preamble that it's just for the town.
I think that if I recall correctly, the school was interested in adopting, once we adopt this policy, a very
Oh.
similar policy potentially for the.
But maybe on number one, under purpose and application, we should say this policy establishes procedures for the acceptance of gifts to the town of Lunenburg, all departments of the town of Lunenburg, except excluding schools.
Yeah, we could make that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Do you want me to type this stuff while I'm, no, okay.
Okay, and then make that change to select board. Okay.
All right, and then the next thing, there's no comment here, but I don't think we actually decided if we like this limit here. The $500 below, the town manager can accept the gift, and if it's above $500, then it comes before the select board.
Yeah, the only, maybe it's addressed somewhere that I haven't seen it. So for example, my personal will, I donate 10% of my estate to the town of Lunenburg. Now, granted, if Ezra's willing to do it. But nonetheless, it just seems kind of wild that if someone leaves something to the town in the form of a will, that the town would still maybe deny it. Like, how does that? Because doesn't that kind of become more anyway? I don't know enough about estate planning in terms of what happens if something doesn't go where it goes. But if someone passes and leaves property or leaves money, I mean, is the town really going to say no?
I think it depends, right? Like, let's
A broken
say,
down house or
exactly, a contaminated piece of property, no thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, but no thanks.
But if it's money, but then again, all right, you
Yeah.
just talked me out of it because then it's a value. I get it. Yep, great, thanks.
Well, yeah, I mean, if somebody says, here's my old barn full of old equipment, old farm equipment that hasn't worked in 20 years, good luck, have fun. You can't just give that, they shouldn't be required to accept that. I mean, I'm using a very absurd example, but, yeah, the town should have the right to deny a gift, yes.
Okay, so are we okay with this limit? $500?
It seems a little low. I
Yeah.
would say, if anything, boost it to 1,000.
Right,
I mean, it seems like a round number.
Concur.
yeah. Because I think especially now that we're doing this, I think we're going to get a lot of these requests coming before us, so. Okay, so increase that to 1,000. That's good for me. All right, let's see what else. I think there was one other thing, right?
I haven't checked with town council yet
Okay.
on that one piece.
And then it was the anonymous confidential donations
Yeah.
tweak. I don't remember why we wanted to tweak this. Does anyone remember?
Which one?
Anonymous/confidential donations just says tweak. And I don't remember why, and I
I
never
know
went
I
back and looked.
had brought that up. I can't remember exactly why right now. Somewhere earlier in the policy, it says they have to give their name, and then I was like, then they could do
Right.
it anonymously, so it would kind of conflicted.
And the question is, if we do this, does it fall into the public records or not? I mean, it's okay not to publicize it, to accept something anonymously, seems an odd thing that a public entity like a town would do.
Right.
I will say that in my last community, somebody made a substantial gift to the police department, and they did, the condition of the gift was that they wanted it to be anonymous, because they didn't want other folks
Right,
knocking
coming
on
to
their
them,
door.
right.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it, I think that was why, I'll have to go back and review the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I did have points on it, but.
Okay.
Because this paragraph gives us flexibility to do it and doesn't require it one way or another, I guess we can leave it to discretion and ask people why they would want to do it and even how that would happen. I mean, eventually there's got to be some track. If they're giving you something, somebody has a trace of something where it came from.
Mm-hmm. And it does seem, so in the language here, in certain situations, a donor may prefer to make a confidential or anonymous donation to the town. The town manager may evaluate this type of gift and is authorized to accept it on behalf of the town without public notification of the donor's name, as long as all other requirements are satisfied to the extent permitted by law. So I wonder now, in this case where the anonymous donation is over $1,000, then it would still just be handled by the town manager, it seems like, by this language. So it wouldn't even come before the select board. So
I don't think that'd be true. We
No.
would probably just do it in an executive session.
Okay.
Maybe we should clarify that.
Yeah.
If in the anonymous,
Refer to the limits mentioned earlier.
refer to the limits, and if over, let me see, if over 1,000 in executive session, if allowable.
Right. I'd have to look at the reasons to see if that really falls under one. Probably doesn't. Okay. That was it, though. There was really no other lingering questions here for this. So let's see. In terms of changes of substance, we changed that to select board. We changed that to 1,000. And then okay, we still have to run this by town.
At the very top, we excluded the school committee or the school department.
School.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay. Well, it seems like we're not ready to approve this anyway, because we still need town council to weigh in on this part.
So,
The solicitation.
yeah, so I'm thinking just with timing, that it would be back before maybe the May 20th meeting to get it back from council.
Yeah, probably. Sounds right. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on this tonight?
Nope.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on, discussion on select board and town manager goal-setting process. I think we might just revisit this with the new board after we go through this process and it's fresh in our minds. How's that sound?
Makes sense.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
One thing I would urge is that the board addresses both goals at the same time,
Well, yes, yes.
like early.
All right, tax investigation report.
So I know that I sent when I was sitting here, if you can add it to the drive.
Did you email it?
I did. I emailed it to
Do you have it open?
town.
Okay, can you drop it in? I don't have my email.
I don't know if I added Jen. Let me put it to her.
Right.
So as we do this, let me just add Jen to it.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
first, need to fully take responsibility for how long this has taken. I think it, in some ways, has been a disservice. At the end of the day, what our bylaws require is for us to provide the town with a summary in an annual report. So, we've talked about the tax investigation, and while we pull this up, I want to just kind of refer back to the executive summary and hit a couple of highlights. So, ultimately, I think, no matter how we look at the data, I think, and I'm just going to get to this part of it, there's no question that what occurred in 2023 was incorrect. And now, technically, I think that what we learned in the process was several things. And I am going to read here, but we learned several things. But let's just be real about just the whole thing. Number one is, no taxpayer should ever get a bill that says that their taxes went up by $3,500 and had no indication that it was coming or on the horizon or even possible. And they didn't make any substantial improvement to their house. It was just 1 year to the next. On the surface, that seemed incorrect. I think that most people who came before us, that seemed incorrect. I kind of took the position early on that I wouldn't evaluate whether or not it was incorrect because I didn't know enough about how the assessors did it. And I took the approach of trying to be as neutral as possible, but certainly there was no question that, it looked quite wrong. Digging into it, I think we uncovered a lot of things. Number one being that the Department of Revenue provides really strict rules for how you're supposed to go through a valuation process. And I think that we had several members of the community, Carl Luck, Jack Rabbit, who are really digging into those regulations about how you're supposed to evaluate. And come to find out, no one that does the assessments even follows those regulations. They all do it in software. And the software is a whole different system. And so there really isn't a lot of comparison there. But in many ways, it was a perfect storm. So, I want to just highlight this executive summary and just walk through it. 2023 started off on a bad footing for the overwhelming majority of property owners with homes that abut Lake Whalum, Hickory Hills Lake, and Lake Shirley. When those 429 property owners learned that their average tax bill increased by $3,590.64, while the 3,159 non-lakefront property owners received an average 82-cent tax increase. The Select Board conducted an investigation to identify the causation of the substantial tax increases on waterfront property owners. The proximate causes for the situation are as follows. One, while the work that the principal assessor and Board of Assessors conducted to identify property values for fiscal year 2023 was technically allowable by Department of Revenue standards, it was incorrect. The pandemic of 2020 through 2022 dramatically changed the way that people in Massachusetts conduct business and immediately turned many homes into workspaces and offices. The ability for most professionals to work from anywhere with an internet connection led to many people choosing to leave urban communities to more suburban or rural communities. A critical part of the spread of COVID-19 has been proximity to others, as it's a contagious disease spread through germs in the air. As a result, many people purchased homes outside of cities. The principal assessor and Board of Assessors in Lunenburg should have, upon identifying a 0.48 assessment to sales ratio for lakefront properties, conducted more analysis to verify the accuracy of the information. They should have maximized the allowable time range to better consider that home sales during the peak of the pandemic were anomalous. They did not. And to highlight here, they used essentially 1.3% of that's how many homes turned over. There was roughly 1.3%, and they took that and extrapolated it to 100% of the homeowners. I think most people say not enough sales data to be able to do that. Two, the assessor's office was plagued, in the view of many assessors, by years of bad data. And this came out of the interviewing process. They had a 27-year business relationship with RRG. And let me pause there. It is a bad business practice to have for any municipal agency, any state agency, any government entity, to have a contract with a vendor for 27 years. Looking through, trying to identify the competitive bidding process, whether or not that was accurately followed, lack of data on our end to be able to even verify that we properly went out to bid on this. So they had a 27-year business relationship with RRG, an outside vendor that provided assessment of services. In or around 2015, assessors began to question how well data was being collected and whether homes were being evaluated following building permits and sales. Assessors questioned whether or not commercial and personal property taxes were being done correctly by RRG. Assessors questioned whether cyclical inspections were actually occurring. And generally, assessors believed that the quality of services rendered had dramatically decreased. When the Board of Assessors hired a different company to provide personal property tax assessments, they realized a substantial increase in revenue, further reinforcing that they needed to change direction. And I believe, and I have it somewhere in here, I think, that generated over 100% increase. The Board of Assessors believed that hiring a staff assessor rather than a company would result in better data collection, and they worked with the town manager to create a new staff role. The town parted ways with RRG in 2020 and hired Sue Burns, who worked from July 2020 to September 2021. Christine Kumar worked from early September 2021 to December 2021. Rena Sweezy worked from December 2021 to March 2022. And CJ Carroll was hired in March 2022. Within the span of 2.5 years, the town had 5 different principal or interim principal assessors. 3, CJ Carroll was qualified to perform the job that he was hired to perform. And let me pause there. The only qualification to be an assessor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is to pass DOR Course 101. That's it. That's a very low bar. CJ was qualified to perform the job he was hired to perform, but there were inadequate supervisory controls in place to verify that the work he was doing was correct and informed by experience. I comment here that young adults need jobs, and they have to get experience somewhere. It is acceptable for a town to hire someone with growth potential within the community, and given the tight labor market, hiring someone who hadn't worked as a principal assessor was not in and of itself problematic. However, aside from monitoring deadlines, the town manager did not have, nor was expected to have, relevant related experience, and trusted, without a more formal mentorship program in place, that CJ was being adequately mentored. More could have been done to retain a qualified assessor to provide oversight during CJ's first year of employment, as that would have set the employee up for success. Some members of the select board questioned the supervisory controls in place. Let me pause there and comment. I asked the town manager if CJ had a mentor when he was hired, and I was told yes. So I comment here that some members of the select board questioned the supervisory controls in place when CJ was hired and was advised by the town manager that he had a mentor. This investigation identified that his mentor was his father-in-law. Neither Human Resources nor the town manager nor any member of the Board of Assessors identified the need for more professional oversight. Comment here being, if we just would have spent $6,000 hiring someone to verify the quality of the work, a lot of this wouldn't have happened. 4, the Board of Assessors had 2 members that were in their first year of service and who had no relevant professional experience, and 1 long-term member with family responsibilities that limited his engagement on the Board of Assessors. The members of the Board of Assessors fully trusted the principal assessor to do his job correctly and provided minimal oversight. While they asked probing questions, they did not perceive themselves as being more or equally capable as the principal assessor. And this came out in the interviews with the assessors, that they didn't realize that they could override the principal assessor. They thought that, anyway. Number 5, the Board of Assessors did not have protocols in place to catch anomalies or significant variances in data. Had the board have known how dramatic the tax implication would have been, they likely could have paused the process to confirm an error in data and or not approve the assessed values as provided. However, with little fuss or question, they accepted the values provided to them, and they didn't understand that their signature on the final documentation was confirmatory rather than compulsory. And then 6, the fix to the problem highlights what the source of the problem ultimately was: bad data. The index map that groups similar properties together into like neighborhoods had not been updated in at least 15 years. It should have been updated every 5 years. The recognition that not all property in Index 1 are alike, and that there are, in fact, 3 tiers of property within that Index 1, greatly contributed to homeowners receiving incorrect tax valuations for fiscal year 23. Specifically, homes with sandy beachfront were initially provided equivalent valuations as homes with rocky or steep waterfront. The quality of the waterfront has a marked impact on the value of the property, and that was not adequately considered. In summary, the town hired an inexperienced principal assessor that had familiarity with the town but was new to performing many functions of the job. The assessor was not adequately supervised by the town manager, and the data he provided to generate property values was inadequately reviewed and scrutinized by the inexperienced Board of Assessors. With the anomaly of hyperinflation due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the inflexibility of retracting submissions from the Department of Revenue after they were accepted by them, created the perfect storm of many homeowners receiving excessive and significant property valuations and resulting tax assessments. None of the 427 homeowners that filed for abatements filed subsequent appeals to their valuations after they were modified. While this isn't a conclusive indicator in and of itself, as it should be assumed that many homeowners were fatigued by the process, the lack of further appeals by virtually everyone affected does indicate that the correction resulted in a property valuation that most, if not all, homeowners were reasonably comfortable with. So, as we go through this, and I do think that, that it would be beneficial for the members to, review this next week. Let's really spend some time. I still have, and I apologize that I didn't attach them to this, but we have it all. We have all the charts that came from CJ, and there's spreadsheets that identify how he evaluated every single index that came up with the sales ratios. We have the report that came from MSR, which is the company that we hired, and they themselves provided an executive summary that really kind of indicated that some of this was related to the bad data. Ultimately, I think that my own opinion of all of this is the controls must be in place. The timeline must be sooner. If Selectman Alonso asked the question at the meeting, if anyone was going in any neighborhood was going to have data or have their tax increase disproportionately, and the answer was no, and the answer should have been, I don't know, because it was abundantly clear that day that the assessor actually didn't know. And in the interview process, it came out that there was not, when that question was asked and answered, there had not actually been an evaluation of what the tax implications were. And then the other thing that I don't note in the report, because I think it's personal, but I think it's certainly worth noting publicly, is we had an assessor who had their first child at the end of December. I mean, anyone who goes through their first child knows that those last couple of months especially, it's exciting, but you're also distracted. You're building a room, for your kid. Like you're really making a lot of plans, and there was a reasonable amount of time off that occurred. In the principal assessor world, a lot of these deadlines happen in the fall. They happen in October, they happen in November, they happen in December. And people having kids should be supported. But there was just nothing kind of done to help. So I'm not trying to point fingers and throw anyone in a supervisory role under the bus, as much as it's just critical and highlighting how critical it is that if any of this had have been done, if any of those kind of checkpoints had have been done, none of it would have occurred. And so it seems to me to be a combination of multiple factors that contributed to the problem. But the problem was self-evident. It was abundantly clear, in my opinion, from day one of what the issue was. And I think the real challenge was, how do we undo it? And I know that, we spent time trying to figure out how do we undo it. It seemed pretty clear that there wasn't a way to undo it. And the task at hand was, in order to make better decisions here, you have to get better evaluations. And I'm glad that the town did a lot of stuff, hiring MSR, that was wonderful. But ultimately, I think that that's the executive summary of what happened. I wish it didn't, but I think the executive summary really summarizes what occurred and why it occurred.
All right, I'll open it up for discussion.
When the tax investigation was opened, one of the things I think that townspeople were hoping for was, well, twofold. First of all, in the end, what turned out to be the town, who just passed an override last year and used free cash, the town lost $1.5 million in revenue. And I think the tax people, especially the lakefront owners who were the burden of that, whose abatements caused that $1.5 million loss. And the rest of the town should have been asking, we can't afford that. We were lucky that we were in a financial position to afford that, but they wanted to know two things. First of all, someone's name or some group had to be in somebody's briefcase because this was caused by someone. This was not accidental. There were people responsible for this. And the second point is, we need to identify what processes and procedures were not in place or were in place to allow this to happen and to close those gaps so they wouldn't happen again. If I address the second one first, that would require that we come up with a report earlier than 2 years later. So we're already well beyond the point where any of these things will have any reasonable impact because the new Board of Assessors, and I thank them publicly for coming in at a time when the house was on fire, and like firefighters who go in, they came to that board and put out fires in the middle of heat of doing all this, that they've addressed most of the things, and many of the things don't even exist in the report, okay? The second thing is, who are the responsible parties? I think, I've talked about this before. I really don't want my last two meetings to go into these things again, okay? But I will say that I find this report, what the vice chair just read,
Substantially similar.
I would say identical except for the last two paragraphs, that what we've seen in a draft many, many years ago. Many, many months ago, I'm sorry. So I think it's wholly inadequate. It does not, for somebody who says it doesn't want to put blame on people, he blames people. I don't think he blames the right people. And some things aren't even addressed at all, in the heat of this happening. Imagine, again, I don't want people to have nightmares and relive it, but imagine opening your mail somewhere in the middle of January and find out that on February 1st, what you thought would be a normal tax bill is now $3,500 higher, and you have till February 1st to pay it. You have 2 weeks to come up with an enormous amount of money, and as it turned out, the people who sent out the bills, who were in question to begin with, didn't send them out in time, as it turned out. Now, some members of the town knew that they weren't sent out in time and yet accepted a very fake affidavit from the bulk mailing company that could have saved people 3 months. It would have given them 3 months more time to get the money together. And the one thing that the town could have done, they didn't do. And they didn't do, not because it wasn't found later on, it's because the data was suppressed that I eventually found out later on, okay? That did not help the situation at all. Some of the things that I think are missing from the report. First of all of the things that the bad data and using a company that we had a relationship with for 27 years, while they may not be a good practice, RRG never lost the town $1.5 million. In the end, it's the Board of Assessors who, as an elected body, needs to oversee, whether it's a regional assessor, contractor assessor, or an in-house assessor, oversee them, and for many, many years, all they did was rubber stamp. It was very clear that they just rubber stamped things and they didn't evaluate what was the data that was going before them. That was the beginning of a lax procedure that allowed this to happen. Coupled on the fact that we hired, for the first time, we thought it would be better to have an in-house assessor, and that may or may not be true, but it took a long time to fill that position because of the job market, and we chose somebody who, again, just by the data, was not up to the task. It turned out to be a very complex year, that a very experienced assessor was needed, and while I necessarily don't blame the inexperience of somebody, I certainly don't think it's the town manager who didn't oversee them, and the town manager's job is not to do lead assessing. So, it was his inexperience that did it, and to be very honest, it was his reluctance to believe that anything he did might have been a mistake, which made it even worse, because he really entrenched himself early that, no, I did not make a mistake. That the data was the data doesn't lie, and this was the way it was supposed to be. And then he pointed to the years of bad data, that the assessment of lakefront property wasn't adequately over the years raised to the right level of the sales ratio level, but there were two different 5-year evaluations that the Board of Assessors had to sign off on, that this must have been accurate, otherwise the DOR wouldn't have accepted it. So again, I don't buy that that was the problem. Some things that weren't in the report at all, we found out that the Board of Assessors or the town, nobody had data backups of our data. We relied on the state's CAMA system, which they took offline, and we didn't have any hard copies, so when it came to the time to do evaluations of what was our tax history, and people who know data in this town and are good with spreadsheet had zero data except for 2 years to go by, and everything beyond that was on PDFs and printed documents that they would have had to enter manually over 5,000 properties. That wasn't going to happen. So we had no evaluation tools. There was no strong policy in determining the tax bill mailing dates. There was no comprehensive review of the tax bills by the town or the Board of Assessors as a whole to pick out large changes. When we hired MFS to do the evaluation, one of the conversations I had with the owner of that company and the person who led the secondary abatements and secondary assessments, I should say, was that any seasoned assessor would, before they present to the Board of Assessors, and certainly before they present to the tax rate, would look at sample properties and say, what is this doing to these properties? And that would have been noted well in advance. And anybody would have brought to the Board of Assessors like, these are the numbers that I'm going to present to you, and these properties, X category, are going to be extremely high. You should know about it, and maybe we should review them. That wasn't done. Coupled onto that was after people were getting their mailings late, the assessor's map property cards were woefully behind. Some of them were like 2 years behind. You go to the assessor, the GIS map and the assessor's map of the property data, the CII map, I think it's called, and people were seeing their properties from 2021. Those have to be updated. And again, the Board of Assessors has worked very hard with our company and with Vision to get that done. All of these things should have been in the report a year ago. All of them should have been addressed then. And, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, in the end, I think we did the town the town as a board, and certainly the tax investigation team, of which I was a part, did a poor job of protecting people who were vulnerable. Many people, not many, several people lost their homes. Many people had incredible anxiety about what was going to happen. And, again, we need to put things in place to avoid this. And the way to do that is to annotate what they were. And a year later, then it should have come out. I don't know that we're doing that. So, anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Renee or Amanda, do you have anything you'd like to say or ask?
No.
My only comments are that, I wasn't on the board during this time, although I was following it. And then I'll need to take some more time and read it. And that's all I have at this time.
Right. I do too. So do you want us to put this on the agenda again next week?
Please.
You said that you wanted to
Yeah, I'll
put
make
together
some
some
additional,
more stuff. And
I think that some of what Mr. Alonso said is recorded at a different portion of it. It's not in the executive summary, it's before it.
Okay.
And so, we basically had, that's the section. So we basically had kind of core questions that we were trying to answer throughout this. And I think some of what Mr. Alonso indicated, should make it into the executive summary. I think the mailing date conversation comes in and kind of how that was decided. I think the note about, data, I think could be expanded upon to note the property cards. So, I think there's a couple of additions, but, I'll make sure that get them taken care of, because, you know, it's, and I don't want to disagree at all with Mr. Alonso. You know, I think that, you know, this is one of the rare times where I will concede that Tom is completely correct, that, you know, this should have happened sooner. And, you know, I'm not going to make any excuses on my own life. I know that I did have to kind of step back from this quite a bit. You know, and I think that we also saw some of the good work that was coming out of the Board of Assessors, in which they very quickly kind of set up policies and controls. You know, so I think on the compilation side, you know, I do agree with Tom's feedback here to expand upon that summary. And I'll make sure I take care of that, so that way it's plenty of time for everyone. Materials are due by Thursday, so I'll make sure I comply with the policy. This is my last week and a half here, so I've been a push, and I'll make sure that I comply with our policy so that everyone has time to review, and so that way next week we can come with those kinds of additions.
Thank you. All right, sounds good. All right, moving on. What else do we have on the agenda? 56 Carr Ave, cellar hold. Have we picked an?
No, we're just working on picking an assessor from, an appraiser from a variety of two, and then we'll get that person going.
All right, fantastic.
And maybe in the next few weeks, it'll stop raining so people can actually go.
Oh, yeah? All right, thanks, Jen. And then discussion on budget task force charge. Where we left this off, we were discussing membership. I don't know if there's anything else anyone else wants to discuss about the charge, but membership is one that I wanted to have a conversation on again tonight.
Where is this in here again, or?
I don't think I put it in. My apologies.
Don't worry about it.
So if you go back to April,
I can drag it and drop it.
okay, thank you. I think it was 15th. Yes.
Okay, top of the folder.
Okay, let's refresh.
To the folder. There you go.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's here, budget task force folder, and then the charge is in the PDF. Okay, so remember when we discussed this, we talked about the possibility of making staff non-voting members and then potentially adding more representation, whether it's from additional seats from already represented boards and committees or representatives at large. I just want to see where members are at on that again.
If I remember the last time, Mr. Chair, if I remember the last time we brought this up, that I think what was highlighted was that it's very technical, and that unlike some other roles that we have across the town, that this is one that really does require a little more experienced membership base, a little more intimate knowledge of how the finances work. So, you know, I do think that maybe between the select, you know, although we have one representative from the select board, one from school committee, one from finance, I do think there maybe should be opportunity to create another seat or two for additional members from the school committee, select board, and finance committee to join. Maybe one minimum, two max. And that allows for, if there's availability in everyone else's schedule. But then again, you know, Selectman Imke, you know, worked on this, and I think we all know that when you get, the larger the committee gets, the harder it is to actually find time to meet, the harder it is to accommodate everyone's schedules, and sometimes the quality of the discussions decreases. So I'm going to defer to Selectman.
I think quorum could be a challenge. I think we've seen it with other committees in town. I know when we talked about this last year, you know, knowing that this group is unique in the sense of having, you know, 4 employees. You know, I'm sensitive to taking their time, but they are critical members of this. They have the information, they do the forecasting, they, you know, I think other members ask questions. It's different, they, you know, provide different perspectives and can ask questions. But it's really, you know, the finance director and superintendent and town manager that have the information and the experience. So I don't know how best to balance that.
Max, Selectman MP, do you think, I mean, given that I think a lot of what we were initially trying to resolve was, you know, existing budgetary concerns within the school department and upcoming and foreseeable budgetary concerns in all other departments, do you think it would be beneficial to increase membership from the school committee to 2? Or do you know?
I have nothing against that.
I mean, it's good. Keep
I
in
know
mind
school
that
committee members have a
we
lot of
have
other
members
subcommittees
of
and.
the entire task force, so.
I mean, the school department makes up more than half of the budget. And it's going to be a new superintendent, and I don't know, is there going to be a new business manager? I don't know at this point. But, man, yeah, we need, they're going to, yeah, it's a big part.
I think my point when I brought this up last time was that, of course, the town manager, superintendent, finance director, school director of finance, those are where the data is going to come from. It's a matter of, do they need to, should they be voting members? They're not members of the community as far as residents. And, you know, obviously we cannot, the task force could not do their job without that data. So they have to be involved in the committee. The really question is, should there be core members that are voting members? And that's what I would say.
I'm trying to think, what do we vote on?
Well,
We
hopefully-
recommend, on a
Oh my God, I hope
recommendation.
you vote on a lot of things.
Well, you know, recommend, the vote is a recommendation.
Well, you
It
vote on
doesn't-
recommendations.
It doesn't, it's not like a vote here enforces implements a policy or something.
No, but votes on the
So-
task force are, you know,
I think-
substantial.
I think voting on recommendations like that, I think it is important to get town manager and superintendent's input.
I don't disagree with getting their input. I
No, as a
disagree
vote,
with
as a
them having-
vote, I think it's,
Well, I mean, the same way that the school superintendent doesn't vote at the school committee,
Yeah, this-
board votes. I mean, there is advisory to give data, and they can have strong opinions, they may not have strong opinions, but eventually it's the,
so if they're not voting members, they don't attend the meetings?
no.
All right, Jen.
Oh, okay, good.
So I certainly don't think the town manager necessarily needs a vote, because ultimately the budget is
Yeah.
the town manager, so it
That's
becomes a little circular in that
true.
way. I think healing out the town manager's vote, though, then if other parties are voting, causes a little internal inequity. But I think it should be all or nothing, one way or the other, but I, just so the board is clear, I do not have really an opinion on this. Whatever the pleasure of the board would be, I think that either would work.
What if the approach here was support from town manager, superintendent, finance director, director of admin and finance, and then actual membership being 2 members of the select board, 2 members of the school committee, 1 member of the finance committee, and then allowing for alternates. And that we have a 5-member board, you have support staff who can do it, you have alternates in case someone can't make it, that can jump in. But, you know, I've heard so many people stand up and say that, you know, we said we were going to do X, Y, and Z in this budget task force. And I'm over here like, I never said any of that stuff. 'Cause I never signed up to be a part of this. But I think it might be helpful given the seriousness of it. And then, you know, and I don't know where we would fit this in, but I think it's going to continually rather be difficult to come before voters without making some progress on some revenue stuff here. You know, I mean, I look at these parking lots and I see great sunlight hitting them all day long and no solar panels on them. And I know we have an electric bill and all this stuff, and solar panels will offset it. I mean, I think there has to be some good faith that comes along with this beyond just the ideation portion. But, you know, if we're going to be asking voters for more money, I think we have to demonstrate, and here's what we can do, capital plan, et cetera, that is reducing operational cost to provide more capacity within existing budgets. You know, I would like to see this charge get a little stronger in the sense that, like, I think there has to, not just ideas, but I think there has to just be some, and I don't know how to do it, but there has to be some progress made. Because, I mean, this task force was created a year ago. You identified certain things. School committee is the one that has the biggest budget shortfall, and no progress on any way to make revenue, you know, and I don't understand it. Well, minimal progress. I know they've increased sports fees. That just upsets the parents. But in terms of built-in revenue.
I think if we're going to increase representation from committees, I would support having 2 members of Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Then you have a.
I mean, that's,
Well, I'd have a citizen at large, too. I mean, the success or failure of this task force is going to be the quality of the people who are on it and their ability to deal with financial data. These are all trends. You need to see trend lines. You need to see both, as the vice chair said, you need to see revenue trend lines. You need to see expense trend lines. You need to see 3-year projections. You need to see 8 to 10-year retrospective and graph those. And you can show people, look, this is what inflation does. This is what COVID did with the inflation after COVID. Like, this is where things are happening. And show people where the increases are. You know, it's one thing to hear, yes, health insurance went up 12%, and next year we expect it to go up 12%. But when you see it on a graph, it's a whole lot more impact than if you just say the number. Because, you know, if you come to the Are You Smarter Than a Sixth Grader, there'll be a percent question, and people don't do well on those when you just give them the words. They do better when you see them on graphs.
Yeah.
And then to know what questions to ask, to know what to ask the town manager and the superintendent and the finance directors of both. What data do you need to create those? That's important.
All right, so I'm just writing down here so I can actually see what we've discussed with the membership. We've had 2 proposals here. So you said 2, Michael Ray, you said 2 select board members, 2 school committee members, 1 finance committee members. Renee said 1 select board member, 2 school committee.
I mean, do we
2
need an
finance committee.
do we need an odd number?
I would. Yes.
So, I mean, 2 finance, 2 school.
And then 1 member at large?
Well, they gotta have somebody from the select board.
Well, there's 1.
Well, you can do 1 from select board.
Yeah.
And no member at large. If you do 2 from select board, then you have a member at large to make it an odd number.
Right.
And then the question is, how do you select a member at large?
Town moderator.
The select board. The
Those are
select
2
board choose them.
Yeah, the select board
Yeah.
should, I would argue. They
Yep.
can submit a talent bank form.
Right.
There's a box for other.
Then we're getting into a huge committee that we're gonna have quorum
That's
issues.
7.
That's more than 7 if we do.
Well, that's
right?
7 voting, so
7
4 for a
voting
quorum.
Oh, sorry.
Keep-
I'm starting to
That's
fit up
okay.
a migraine, so I'm a little.
No, keeping
fuzzy
in
here.
mind that school committee has to be on building committee, school committee member has, finance committee, select
know.
board member also has to sit in a building. It is kind of overtasking the same core.
School committee they have a lot of other,
If I were to take a shot at it, I
Obligation.
would say that the select board member, you need 1, they represent the town, so the town excluding the school. 1 school committee member who represents the school, 2 finance committee members who don't have a department to protect, so they're there as finance, and 1 citizen at large. That would be my recommendation.
Agree.
And
Yeah, I think that's good, actually.
that's 5.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
5.
Yeah, that's why we were trying to keep it at 5, so. All right, so 1.
And I think you
School.
have some very good finance committee members.
And then,
Yeah. Now,
how
we
would
can do
we
it.
handle the staffers that are on the list? Would they be members, just not voting members, or would they just be asked to be?
They wouldn't be members so
Or
much
as-
as they would be required to attend when necessary. Just like the town manager goes to the finance committee meeting. They're not required, they're not part of the finance committee, but clearly they're very much involved, although they don't have to go to every meeting. Generally, they're at 90% of it.
Okay, so, yep, I like this idea. So what did we say? 1 select board, 1 school committee, 2 finance committee, 1 at large?
Yeah.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, so it sounds like we're going to settle on that for the membership. And then, let's see what else here. Timeline is one thing that I wanted to talk about. Do we want it to operate in the same way? Do we really want to change Section 1 general here too much, other than the timeline? Renee, what do you think?
I haven't read this.
Yeah, I haven't put too much thought in this. I wasn't really prepared to go into it
I know,
in
it's okay.
detail tonight.
With the timeline as far as forecast? Or what's,
Well, last year we had the recommendation no later than
oh,
December 31st.
oh, December
right?
31st. Yeah. I think it would be nice to have more regular updates, just maybe not to every committee all the time, maybe wrote to the select board, maybe every other month or so, I don't know. To not
Just like
wait.
regular reports, though?
Yeah.
Good to have the final report.
Just for
The timing of
transparency,
the
I think the-
final makes sense as December 31st.
The final for the end of the year, something at special town meeting? I mean, we're going to start right away, right? Somebody, well, not you, not you. Amanda's hiding.
It's all yours, Renee. It's all yours.
Amanda has a master plan challenge, so.
I know. Oh, well,
Oh, yeah, that's part of this.
this doesn't have to be finalized tonight. I know we're just coming out of town meeting, so we need to kind of
No,
transition back
but
to.
election is in 2 weeks, and I think the meeting after the election, I would urge all committees that are going to be participating in this to identify their representative.
Oh, for sure.
So if I could make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman, allow folks a little time to read what this is, come to the next meeting with final plans of what we're gonna do, and then I can message that out to the other committees, and we can advertise about the one opening at large, and then we'll be ready to maybe consider people at the first meeting after the election, but at least
Right.
we'll have some communications going after next week.
Maybe this will be actually an opening that we can fill.
I think it will be. There's a lot of interest already, so.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the one thing I would ask, so I won't be here, is I think it would be helpful, something, I'm thinking of something Jack Rabbit says, which I've said several times, but that you need energy behind ideas to bring them to reality. And, I think that what happened in the last report was a lot of really good ideas, but it would be helpful if we can drill down on like action plans for some of this stuff, so that way it's not like, who's going to pick this up? And what's the timeline of them picking it up? And how are they going to implement it? Because I do think it will be a mistake, with some of those revenue generating things, I've talked about some of them, I think it will be a mistake for them not to make it to the capital plan in the next couple of months, and for them to not be in front of voters next year. Because asking people for money without exploring revenue, to me, it's a non-starter.
I have a question, and maybe I'm just missing it again. Can we or should we consider putting in here as one of their tasks is to evaluate, like explicitly evaluate the override? And maybe, I know it says looking at it, but
Yeah, it's
I'm
the
just
language
wondering
here.
if we make it more
Explicit.
explicit in
Yes.
terms of what we're looking for.
Well, it does say it explicitly in the general.
I think what I personally would like to see out of this is both maybe a one-time and a multi-year, and evaluating what those would look like. That's what I would like to see in this next coming budget season to evaluate.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that's something that we could or should consider putting in here.
Right, instead of saying that the fiscal plan shall consider, as an example, Prop 2.5, et cetera, to actually say that one of the products that the task force produces this year is an override plan, a multi-year plan.
I'm not, I don't even know if
A
it's
recommendation
plan or.
on a Prop 2.5 override.
I want to repeat something that I have heard at least one member of Finance Committee say, and that there's a little bit of concern about talking about an override as if it's a foregone conclusion.
Right.
I agree.
Well,
So-
that's, I'm not saying that the recommendation might be, no, we can't do it after they do this full evaluation. I'm not saying that it should be yes or no. I'm just saying, I think that I would like to see, okay, what might that look like? And I think you've
Right.
already committed
Yeah,
to doing that
yes,
anyway,
yes.
but I'm just not sure if it should be explicitly stated in here.
I think,
Well, as one of the two lame ducks on this board,
and
I
potential
have-
citizen at large
I have-
member.
keep dreaming. I will take the thing is that, yes, an override question is, to my knowledge, undoubtedly on the ballot next year. I don't see how you could go into $1 million and then a $2 million deficit year. One gets addressed, the other one doesn't, and all the accelerators that we're talking about, like health insurance or anything, are still on the table. How we don't get there. The real question is, and this to answer your question, Ms. Moore, is that to have a multi-year plan is exactly what's needed for an override, which is why I said earlier in the meeting, I'm not for putting on the ballot, because we don't have that. You need to see where things are going to know what you need to do, and so they're all tied in together. Now, you could put emphasis on them. From my sake, they were all listed here, and they're listed equally. I don't want to tilt the task force unless you're going to call it an override task force, one way or the other. But I would argue that you can't get to a Prop 2.5 solution without having to do all the other stuff that they're talking about here, which is a 5-year sustainable fiscal plan that shows the forecast as far as revenue and expenditures. You can't get to a product without doing that.
I think 5 years is really, I forget, I saw an interview with someone and said 3 years is, if you can do a 3-year, that's like the best you can hope for is 3
Well,
years.
they're like weather forecasts. I mean, you can pretty accurately do 3 days. 5 days,
It gets squishy.
right.
It gets, year
right.
4 and 5 start
I
to
like
get
that.
squishy.
Squishy, I like squishy.
You can do it, but it's just not as reliable.
Well, right. I mean, the margin of error grows exponentially the further you get away.
And the other thing, that I was thinking about was, okay, this is what the town would look like kind of a tiered, kind of a, do you want the silver, the gold, the bronze, what level? To get the town to this point, this is how much you're looking at. To get to the town to this point, it would be this amount. I don't think it's a single.
I agree 100%. That is an excellent point.
Yeah.
They need options.
I think I am sure there are going to be a lot of angry, especially parents, based on at least where this current makeup of this board is. 3 of us just said, no, we're not
Yeah,
proposing
I know.
a special election. I know that isn't going to be very popular. I wanted to just reiterate the commitment that we have made to bringing this forward.
I think everyone's
But it is sort of
committed.
already here. So, as long as we continue that commitment, we do the work. I just want to reiterate the commitment.
Right.
And what I would like to see happen personally.
So I agree in terms of language, everything is pretty much captured here. Is there anything else that we want to discuss changing for the charge, at least tonight?
I think that, and I don't know how to do it, but I think that one thing that would be really helpful is comparative analysis. When we talk, by department with other communities, like when we talk about, impact of the school department, I want to know, has it become normal for other school departments to have 28 kids in a classroom? What is everyone else doing? How many other, how is everyone else structured? I think that there has to be some same thing with the police department, same thing with the fire department, same thing with DPW. I think we need to do some form of analysis here when you come to the voters that says, this is where everyone else is and this is where we are. Because without that, it feels like you're shooting in the dark here.
Well, we did a lot of that last year, and in hindsight, we probably spent too much time doing that last year. We did a lot, we collected a lot of the data. We, across departments, spent different, that's how this non-recurring, I forget that category, that's how that came about. The data is lagging. It's like 2 years old, what we can get. And so last year, that 2-year-old data was just coming out of COVID. It wasn't, so this year, we'll have 1 more year, but it's lagging. It's not going to look at current day. And I don't know how to get that, because I look at DESI and DLS, I think that's all everybody has access to. But I want to be careful, because we can use what we got last year. Maybe Evan will come back. But I don't want to spend too much time going back and doing that. I want to go forward. I want to have, okay, we have some data. I don't know what we can learn by doing that. Again, that would influence how we go forward.
I think the community at large wants to know what they're getting. I mean, if we're going down the path of formulating an override or seeing what the 3-year plan is.
I think that we,
I think-
yep.
I think they want to know what they're getting at the end of it and how does it stack up with everyone else. And I think if we, as an example, I know this isn't true, but if we identify that we have more police officers per person than every other town in Massachusetts, which we know is not a fact, we know that that's very much so not true, but we have a plan that's adding in more police officers, someone's going to say, well, why are we doing that?
I think we're rare that our fire department doesn't have a 4th shift.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we know
Right?
that. We know that.
Yeah.
But I think
so
some of that data,
That's one piece of, I mean, that kind, so, okay.
maybe you've already collected the data, and it's just a matter of being able to present it in a way that it informs the voting population, what are we getting at the end of this? If we go down
Yeah.
this road, what do we get?
I don't want to become victim of paralysis by analysis either.
Yeah, I think, there's a good foundation for what the task force already did. I'm hoping that we can take that and just,
Now that we have,
based
now we have a
good
permanent town manager,
basis,
what does the staffing, you can already tell where our staffing needs are. What does that look like? Can we really seriously explore doing some kind of consolidation between town and school services of any kind, IT, mowing, anything? Because that keeps coming up, and, well, there's no savings there. How do we know that?
And, and capital effects. I mean, we just approved, a new heat pump air conditioning system. Their electric bills are going to go up.
Yeah.
And they're going to go up quite a bit. And I don't know if their budget reflects how much their electric bills are about to go up, So I think some of it may be recommendations into the budgeting process as well, that, how do you, when you make a capital request that you're demonstrating. So these, I'm probably too weedy here, but these are things that I think would be helpful.
It does get into the weeds.
Piggybacking off of what Mr. Jeffries just said, one of the very clear requests from Finance Committee this year is they are looking for a standardization of the way materials are presented to them, so that all departmental budgets come in on the same forms and have the same types of backup and have the same data, same thing with capital. So I think, having Budget Task Force weigh in that area about what is best for standardization, so it's coming a little bit from a neutral as opposed to Finance Committee wants or Capital Planning Committee wants, but no, we really looked and these are the best ways to present this data for a reason.
Yeah.
That would be.
It's also the best way to present it to the public, too. And doing any sort of statistical analysis on any data, you need the data to be cohesive.
There isn't a capital planning rep on here.
That's okay.
Because that committee was also supposed to
Well, because the
come
capital,
with a
well, first of all,
long-term plan.
it doesn't really matter, because the capital planning committee, except for the one member at large, is a member of all the other committees anyway.
Yeah,
So you'd
just put
be
it just
pulling
in
from
a
the same
select
pool.
board or.
So
One
there's
what?
a select board member, a finance committee.
Right,
member,
right.
So
But-
those, you don't
But
need a
they're all
capital
turning
planning.
over, there's only going to be you're losing 2 members on capital
So,
planning.
I think one of the things that's obvious and should be stated very clearly is that it's an aggressive, if we're going to do it by the end of the year, if this task force is going to do it, it's an aggressive, and it's all going to be hinged on 2 things, I believe. First of all, the membership. They have to have members who are willing to do the work and meet, and if people are like, well, I got vacation, I got this,
It's
I got my
summer.
kid, that's going to be crazy. And second thing is to set, in the first 2 meetings, set a solid framework that this is what we're doing, this is how much time we have to do this, and follow that aggressively. That means I think comparisons to other towns are critical, but that can't take the whole 6 months, and you can't take 6 months to just look at revenue. You got to say, we're going to look at this, and you got to divide the work, and not everything can come from the town manager and the superintendent. People have to get their own work as well. They have to look at other towns' budgets, or get to, DESI, or get to DLS and pull data and find out what is the data that's important. Because if you're going to depend on, I'll just choose something that's a small, if you're going to look at veterans' benefits, well, that's such a fraction of a town budget. You don't have to do that, right? You got to look at schools, and you got to look at DPW, and you got to look at public safety, and, maybe even go down so far as the library, which is also not a huge budgetary thing.
Contracts that are coming out?
Focus on health insurance, that's a
Yeah.
huge one. Salaries, of course, is a huge one, of course, and, So those are like 10 topics that you choose. Not you, because you're not on it, I understand.
And salary comparisons, you know,
Right.
like
Well, I
between
mean,
departments.
yeah, and that's where we can use, again, we can use our HR person who did a salary range, and we should ask them to assist too. Just because they're not on the approved employee list, we should pull as many people as we can for data, as long as we don't overload any one of them.
And I've made it clear to department heads that, you know, a week or so to relax, and then we're getting going on this. So, that expectation has been set, that they're gonna start really early and looking at everything, and this is a great opportunity because there's a fresh budget that's just set, and I can actually watch it in real time and see where we can make some tweaks and adjustments, but I think that they are on board for this endeavor.
Good. Yeah, because we're gonna need them to forecast, where do they need to go? What employee needs do they have? What project needs do they have that they don't have? What equipment needs do they have that they see in the next 5 years? So,
All right. Moving on, minutes. We do have one set, March 11th. Have we had a chance to review these? It looks like it was just dropped in the drive.
So these were I think they were dropped in over the weekend, or last week, I think.
says-
I made a change to, there was
Okay.
a name change.
Oh, I see,
in it,
okay.
So there was an update about a couple hours ago. This is the set of minutes that was really difficult, and these have been revised by the assistant town manager.
Yeah, these are the ones from the joint meeting
But
of
if
the school
folks haven't
committee.
had time to review them.
I
have
did.
not. I haven't reviewed them.
yeah, I did, because they were in early enough. Things that got added today I didn't get to, but these I did.
It says it was modified 35 minutes ago, so that threw me off.
I don't know about 35, but I added it was a name of one of the registrars of voters was just an X, and her name
Oh.
is Karen Kemp.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, do we want to hold off on this one then?
Fine with me.
I'm fine with it.
I'm good, ready to go.
All right. Is there a motion then?
I move that we approve the minutes of March 11th, 2025.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions?
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. All right, warrants. Do we have any tonight?
No.
No warrants. Action items. So I moved the action item tracker over, and I also reformatted it so that it fits SharePoint instead of Google Drive. So if you go to Documents, I created a folder, Action Items, just so it's a little higher and easier to find, and then the tracker's there.
So not in the meeting folder, but in documents?
Yes.
And then you said, what was the next folder?
Action
items.
items.
Got it.
So this is here. I don't know if we want to review it. I really just wanted to point your attention to it. Are there any new action items that we have tonight?
I think we can take off the meeting room temperature.
Yeah, it was completed.
Oh, yeah.
I think state of the organization was presented.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Do we get an...
Well, we didn't get an org chart.
Yeah, that's why I
So
left
yes,
it.
yeah, we need that.
Yeah. And then tax investigation report, I guess we can close that out next week. And then the other two things is the purge of the shared drive. That'll happen probably over the summer. That's a summer activity. And then board-specific handbooks, which maybe we could discuss and maybe create a goal for that in the coming year, because that will require a lot of work. So we can discuss that a little more before we just start doing that. But yeah, any other action items? All right. Committee reports.
School committee is, so they had 2 superintendent candidate interviews last week, 1 last night, and the 4th is tonight, and they'll be meeting tomorrow, and I believe, hope to have a decision tomorrow night.
Oh, for the superintendent.
What did I say? Did I not say
I think you said
superintendent?
I think,
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
just
I'm just
not-
saying,
I know, you checked out already, so.
Wow.
It's my last meeting with you.
All right, I'll give you some slack.
Yeah, so I think and Stormwater will be meeting week after next.
Stormwater's meeting right now.
You have a lot of stormwater this week, yes.
I have no reports.
I also have no reports.
No reports, I think I made them all at town meeting.
I don't either, other than the Boston Post cane yesterday, which I have already mentioned. All right, upcoming meetings. So we have a bunch of events. Just a reminder, this Friday is Are You Smarter Than Our Sixth Graders? And this Saturday is the All Vendor Fair, and then we're meeting next Tuesday and the Tuesday after that. And I'll also add that the annual town election is on May 17th, Saturday, May 17th. Any public comments from the town manager?
No.
Any public comments from the public? Mr. McClap? No, thought you were going to come out for a second. Mr. Lachlan?
Thank you. TJ Laughlin, 207 Rolling Acres Road. First, quick question. Mr. Alonso, you said 1.5 million was lost before the assessors. Does this mean that Lunenburg's tax levy went up by $1.5 million after that change? I was a little confused on how that works. My understanding is the town can only draw up to that levy. So even if the property values change, you can't go more than that, right? So I'm curious how the town gained.
So I'll just
$1.5
answer that real quickly. No, it didn't impact the tax levy at all. The $1.5 million that Mr. Alonso was talking about came out of free cash for the most part, I believe.
No,
For the
it was taxes that were abated, therefore
Oh, yeah.
not collected.
Oh, I see.
So it doesn't affect the levy, but because the abatements were successful, those property owners, that money that their taxes got abated did not get assigned to anyone else, and so it just was not collected for that year.
Gotcha. So the change in taxes was the abatements. I gotcha. Okay. So now the fun one, I guess. The decision, not to put it on the ballot, and for the reasons I think that you guys decided not to put it on the ballot. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but my understanding is you guys are the executive body of the town. In my understanding is that means you execute the will of the citizens. You don't execute the will of the select board. I think you're supposed to ensure that what we decide as citizens at town meeting is carried out throughout the year. It seems like that's not what we're doing here. Secondly, the finance committee makes recommendations. They don't make decisions, right? The citizens make decisions. We pass the budget. It's our legal decision to do that. So I know the boards didn't agree, but it doesn't mean those were decisions legally. And the other half, I think, of what I heard is it passed by only 2 votes. Really interesting statement there. What is the purpose of town meeting? What does that phrase say about town meeting, that our votes don't matter unless we get 2/3 votes? Unless we get 10% more than the required legal limit? So if you need 2/3, you need to get 10% more than 2/3. If you need 50% or more than 50%, you need to get 10% more than 50%. Like, what does that mean to say it's only 2 votes? If only the ballot matters, which is what I heard today, because we don't have the right citizens there at town meeting, then why should citizens waste any time at town meeting? Why should we go waste 8 hours if we're saying those votes don't matter? Do we act as a town and as a select board leadership? Do we act only on the things that pass that align with the select board's will? Is that what this means? And the citizens can't even change the capital plan. What we heard was, don't lower the weed bill or the weed project by $50,000 because the boards could still choose to fund those projects because there's no control from the citizens to actually affect which capital projects we fund. So I'm a little concerned, I think, by the decision that, quote, town meeting didn't change anything for the select board. It's an overstep, I think, of authority. And I've never said those words ever in my life, and I never thought I'd have to, but that's what it seems like. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to adjust my opinion, but I'm not sure it's wrong. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Laughlin. Ms. Long.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. He just took the words out of my mouth. I think that when you have 96 people at town meeting being present for that many hours and investing their time into the town, however they participated, they voted. They wanted that override put in a special election, and when you guys are talking about it, I don't think you made any official ruling about it tonight, but I listened to you select board members, the few of you who said that the vote in the town meeting didn't sway you. It felt not good listening to you guys say that. It felt tyrannical in a way, not to be dramatic, but it's like you're saying, yeah, just 2 votes, those 96 people, let's just ignore them. That's like saying, don't bother to show up. Where I'm looking at it as the town is in such a predicament financially. And I know that our town cannot be successful unless we get more town involvement, more people interested in what's going on. It's so easy to be distracted by our lives and to ignore and just let people, the officials, just make decisions willy-nilly without, that's not what I want to say. You guys are not making decisions willy-nilly. What I'm saying is you can make these decisions, and while there isn't many people participating, you're not really hearing the voice of the town and what they want, but now you're starting to hear it. People show up, they show a passion. There's things that are important to them. They vote on them. And then you can just go ahead and make these comments that, yeah, no, that didn't sway me. No, I'm gonna stand by how I feel. It doesn't matter. I think that what you guys really should do is use your positions of power to just get the override on the ballot for a special election so that people know they have a choice. It's not saying the override's gonna pass. And if you guys are scared that it will, it's like saying, well, we don't want the community to make that choice. We don't want them to have their voice. We want what we want because we feel like we've got a better idea of what we're gonna do. But guess what? Your way is not fast enough for the schools. If it is fast enough, then plenty of people will show up and vote on the way you want them to vote. But you're not working fast enough for us, okay? Like, too many staff members are gonna get dismissed, and the schools are just gonna get worse and worse. And we're gonna be that town with many other Massachusetts towns that can sit there and say, I'm sorry, like, our schools aren't very good right now, and you know what, they're just gonna keep getting worse. You guys just do your job. Do what the people asked. They showed up, they used their right to vote, and they are showing that they want the opportunity. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Mr. Bowen.
Hi, how is everybody doing? John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. Everybody hear me clear enough?
We can.
Thank you. Ms. Long and Mr. Laughlin, I'd like to hearken the same sentiment. So I don't know if you really understand the process of how some things work in this town. So the select board could have taken your citizen petition and asked for a vote of the town for a passover. And I don't know if you know what that is, but I sure do, because it almost happened with the particular motion that I presented, that it was going to be presented by the select board to pass over the warrant article, which I, as a citizen, presented. And this is what I was saying about when is it that the people in the town of Lunenburg are going to be the ones to make the decisions for the people, by the people. If not, then why is it that we have not turned ourselves over to a government with a city council and wards? And actually, we actually have the numbers to be able to put a vote together to be able to do that. And then we would have to ask for representation from our particular ward elected officials to do that. And like I said, and I'll say it again, that it's the people that control the money in Lunenburg. But the select board has some discretion, which they gave themselves, to be able to take those things away from the citizens. And if you read through the rules, policies, and things like that, you'll see that there's a lot of that that's going on. And what ends up happening is exactly what's happening now. The two of you are quite dismayed, Ms. Long and Mr. Laughlin. I'm not. I've seen it coming. I've been watching it for 5 years. And I can tell you that when the people start to speak and want to speak, you will be suppressed by the current direction and policy of this government. And we need to have our say, for it is for the people, by the people, not for the people, by the select board to change what the people want. Majority vote is 94, 96, that's majority. And that means that the select board has a duty to be able to honor what the people ask. And if they choose not to, then that's why we have elections. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowen. Mr. Passios, I see you have your hand risen.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me okay? I've had a little trouble with internet up here.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. First of all, Dave Passios of Jefferson, New Hampshire, previously Whiting Street, Lunenburg, but still a citizen of the United States, thankfully. First of all, there's been shout-outs, or many shout-outs early in the meeting here as to the people that made town meeting work as well as it did. I want to put an additional shout-out to the cafeteria staff, the layout that they put out for the citizens to help get them through the day, at least through part of the 8 hours, nourished. Was fantastic. I feel they did a really good job. I've never had such a fresh salad in my life. Anyway, I won't extend the night any longer on that issue. I'd like to make a comment that, you know, in your conversations about the committee, the task force to go forward from after elections, there was a lot of, we need this information, we need that, they need to do this, they need to do that. My personal feeling, and I think you heard it at town meeting, the expectation of the citizens was that the select board would do this work last year that now needs to be done this coming year. You're the executive branch. Between the executive branch, the financial paid employees of the town and the school department, school board and their finance people, I think those are the people that should be bringing a budget and budget outlook for the next 5 years forward. And you should be able to, and I've talked to other people that are in budgetary industries, you should be able to put a basic budget together by June 1. Yeah, it won't be up to date with changes that may come along the way, but you can put the basic budget together and extrapolate it out a number of years based on contracts, so on and so forth, an estimated increase in costs, so on and so forth. So then you have your base budget. You can make the calculations on what 2.5 is going to give you for additional revenues. New growth, we always play with that number and we never get it right. We always estimate it low. So, you know, just estimate it the same with a small increase every year. This should not be passed off onto an appointed committee. This is your job to bring the town forward. And I tasked you last year, over right after elections, to number one, get over your differences and bring the town forward out of the hole we were in. You only brought us partway out of the hole. You didn't deal with the financial piece of it. And I think it's your responsibility and our finance department, our department heads those are the people that have the data available that you keep talking about this ad hoc committee is going to need to get their hands on. Those people already have all that information. Why does there need to be a handoff of it? If you want to put a committee together, some of the complaints I've also heard from the previous speakers was how the town operates. And we've talked about that, or many of us have talked about it for a number of years, that the charter of this running the town of Lunenburg has multiple issues. If you want to see the committee that is going to start looking at the revisions of the charter that's going to be needed to bring about the reorganization of the town so it runs the way it should. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Passios. All right, any public comments from the board?
I do. This is my last, I won't be here next week, so it's my last meeting with Michael Ray and Tom. So I will save my thank yous and goodbye, I guess. I'm sure you guys aren't going to disappear. But seriously, I want to thank both of you for the time on this board and several other boards, committees, commissions. I know how much time both of you have put in, and Tom, I think, is it 20 years?
18.
Okay.
18 over 20.
Almost 2 decades. It's a lot of time, and I know the work it takes. I know the sacrifices you and friends and family have to make to give up some time. So I want to say thank you both, and expecting to see you probably out there or at the podium or some other committee or toll booth in town. But seriously, thank you for all your time and your effort and your commitment to the town.
Thank you.
Any other public comments from the board?
I do have one. I just have another comment that I've been thinking about the vote at town meeting on the override that I wanted to say. We heard tonight from multiple speakers, talking about the citizens. I just want to remind everyone that we are also citizens of this town, that we're volunteers, that we're here on our own, and I know that we are all trying our best. Town meeting is really important. I respect that. But I still believe a vote on a non-binding article doesn't replace the due diligence that the voters expect from this select board before we place a permanent tax increase on the ballot. I still believe that we need more time and stronger coordination across all departments to do this right. So when we do ask for an override, which I do believe we should, that we have a plan that the whole community can rally around. I know emotions are high, and I'm sure we're going to continue to have these discussions, but the decision that I made was made with care and not disregard or disrespect. Just like at the state level, citizens can advocate for legislation, but they can't place it on a ballot without following a structured process of support from elected bodies and officials. The same principle applies locally. The select board is elected to review proposals, weigh townwide impacts, and ensure fully vetted and financially responsible things move forward. A citizen's petition alone doesn't bypass that process. It starts a conversation, but it doesn't guarantee a ballot question. That's not undemocratic or overstepping, in my opinion. It's just our government and how it works.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was the only comment I wanted to make as well, was just, I know that we, I don't want, without getting into the content, just to inform that, based on how we are structured, the ballot, just the warrant is approved by the select board. The ballot is also approved by the select board. There is an expectation that there's some supervision over that process, some analysis that goes into it. But as my colleague just stated, a citizen's petition does not have the ability to do in and of itself a Prop 2.5 override or a debt exclusion or anything else that requires a ballot question. That it is, part of when people go out and vote, and they vote for members to be on the select board, what they're voting for is for the members of the board to execute a certain level of judgment, and part of that judgment is what makes it to the warrant and what makes it to the ballot. We've had some members express the opinion in the past that that anything that comes before them is getting on the warrant and getting on the ballot. I've never held that position, and I have actively discouraged people from holding that position because I think the level of oversight this board needs to provide is built-in and critical. I also want to acknowledge a comment from Mr. Passios, which is that the next time the charter is reviewed, the charter identifies how we operate as a community, and it would be great to get some community engagement because clearly what we're hearing from some members of the community is that they want more control as a resident, as a member of the legislature, that the legislature wants more control over what happens and some of the authority and power that's been given to the select board and to the town manager. And the charter review process is the way to change that power balance. And so there is a way to correct it if people think a correction is needed. But I just want to highlight and educate that that's just, it is the way we're structured. Again, we respect the legislative body, but we are, separate but equal in certain ways. And the separate part, and the equal part is there is a level of judgment that this board can employ when it comes to these questions. And that is wholly within the authority of the board.
All right, thank you very much. So we do have an executive session, so I'm going to make a motion to enter executive session. We won't be re-entering open session. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We will be back next week, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. And with that, I move to enter into executive session and not re-enter open session after exiting executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, and this is with respect to the national prescription opiate litigation.
Second.
Any additional discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Renee?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Amanda?
Aye.
Michael Ray?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. We are now in executive session.